I'm always fascinated with the psychology behind a player taking less money by orders of millions of dollars to stay with his current team, which is what Harrison Smith did this year. So let's do his Everyman Series entry as well as a couple other D-backs on the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You like that on 3, 1, 2, 3, you like it!
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I am your host, Luke Braun, and let's find some joy today. Thank you so much for those of you who listen to this show every single day. You know where to find the show, but you can find it wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, including YouTube, SiriusXM, or any other audio platform, as well as Amazon Fire or Roku. Just download the Locked On Minnesota Sports app. Today on the show, we're continuing on with the Everyman series here on the Locked On Vikings podcast. Backstories of every man on the 90-man roster, hoping we can get through all of them. And today, I'm going to start with Harrison Smith. And in particular, I mean, look, we know Harrison Smith pretty well. He's been around a bit. So this isn't necessarily going to have to be, hey, he went to Notre Dame. You probably already knew that. But rather, this series is about getting to know guys at a deeper level than you can watching a stat sheet or watching a game on TV on Sunday. And with Harrison Smith, the real question is, why'd you just do that, man? I mean, he just took significantly less money to stay with the Vikings. And I think it's really easy to say, well, that was just like loyalty to the team. And it's because the Vikings are so great. We're Vikings fans, right? That's what we want to believe. And I'm sure that that's part of it, right? And he talks all the time that, how great the facilities are, how great ownership is, and how much he appreciates that ownership is sort of will never settle for, anything less than a championship standard, that kind of thing. And how much he appreciates that and the culture that it has created. But so that I'm sure that there's part of it. But I think when you get to know Harrison Smith a little bit more, you'll realize there is something innate to him that's going to spur him to make a decision like that. So I guess let me back all the way up. I guess the best way to get to know Harrison Smith is actually the first time he signed an extension. And Rick Spielman at the time would have like these silver kind of ornamental, like these ceremonial pens that you would go sign it with, and then that pen would be your keepsake for the contract. And so we had that ready for Harrison Smith. And Harrison Smith, only guy to ever do this, pulls out the one he signed his rookie contract with. That is the perfect essence of Harrison Smith. Why do I need the new pen? This one works fine. And in a way, somebody who is extremely deferential to the status quo in life. Very Ron Swanson in that way. I've got a perfectly good thing. I got a perfectly good 2002 Chevy Tahoe. Why would I get a new car? It works, right? Function over for him in a way, but also happy with his lot in life. Even if he didn't make it in the NFL, I think he would have been happy with his lot in life. I have what I have, and I don't need anything else. There's a certain humility to that you get. I mean, it's very, I don't know, kid from Knoxville, Tennessee, hitting the pear trees in his backyard, which is Harrison Smith. As a kid, he was told, okay, he played soccer as a kid before tackle football was an option. And then once tackle football became an option, it was, okay, we can't do both of these sports. You got to pick one. And he says, okay, I'll play soccer. But the second he went to his first soccer practice, he regretted it. And he was like, man, I wish I picked football. And he had all these pear trees in his backyard. He would put on the football helmet and just go hit the trees. And he's after soccer practice, he would get home, put on his football helmet, and go outside and hit the trees. He was always destined to play football. There is a certain passion and allure that this game has that just has that effect on guys sometimes. He would in high school work out. This is another thing, just a so quintessentially Harrison Smith thing. There's this ratty gym in Knoxville called the Wood Gym. There's no fancy equipment. There's no air conditioning in half of it. It is just a place to go get your workouts in, and it doesn't even have like the name on the building. Like you'd have to, if you weren't looking for it, you'd drive by it and not even know that it's an active building doing things. He worked out there every single day in high school, to the point where his mom was even begging him, like, please, like, go out, go get in trouble with your friends, go have a social life. He's like, I think I'll go to wood gym. Got a perfectly good gym. Why would I do anything like that? And when he goes home to train in Knoxville, he goes to wood gym. He doesn't go to some fancy other gym. He doesn't go with some fancy, $1 million athletic program trainer thing that he can now has plenty of money to set that up if he wanted to. I got a perfectly good gym. I'll go work out at wood gym. When he went to college, or when he was taking college recruiting offers, there were a lot of places that wanted him. He was a 4-star recruit with all that hard work. And I think Auburn, Alabama, like all the big schools wanted him. But Notre Dame was the only one that didn't want him to move to linebacker. He played safety in high school, and he wanted to continue to play safety in college. Everybody else wanted him to bulk up and move to linebacker. He didn't want to do that. He knew he could be a safety. Notre Dame was willing to let him try that, and lo and behold, he goes to Notre Dame, and that's going to be that. From that point on, you kind of know his story, right? Great career at Notre Dame, ends up being a first-round pick right at the back end of the first round. Vikings trade back in the first round to get him in 2012. He's a starter day one. He's a perennial all-pro, leader on the team and everything, right? The team's rock, the stoic, nothing can phase Harrison Smith kind of guy, the hitman, everything. You know Harrison Smith from here on out, right? But I guess there's two more things I want to tell you about. One was how he met his wife. For all of the rock-hard stoicism that comes with Harrison Smith, it's fun to see that sort of melt down when it comes to the story of how he met his wife. He was third grade, a youth swim competition, and or a youth like swim team that he was on with one of his sister's friends named Madison. And he was a bad swimmer. He barely made it. Madison says, like, I was worried he was going to drown before he made it to the end of the pool. Like, he was horrible at it. And Madison was a pretty good swimmer and made fun of the boy quite a bit. Also, your friend's little brother, you're going to be a little bit, he's like, he said he thought she was like a mean girl. And, was just the kind of little brother tagging along with the big sister's friends and all that stuff. And that was kind of how it was throughout like childhood and even high school. It wasn't until after he got drafted, during his first year as a Viking starter, where he was already starting to kind of emerge as this guy that could be somebody in 2012, he goes home for the Thanksgiving holiday to Knoxville, and he's by this point kind of started to see Madison as a little bit more than the mean sister's friend, maybe a little crush, and says, hey, let's go get some sushi. And from there on out, they will date from that point forward. They're together for like 7 or 8 years as partners through everything in life, through maturing. I mean, from being 22 to being like 30, life changes a lot through those years. Madison will go on to work for a nonprofit. Harrison will go on to get mega money extensions, make Pro Bowls, all pros, playoff games, the Minneapolis Miracle, all this stuff that, the team has gone through between 2012 and 2020, when COVID changes everything. And again, with Harrison Smith, there is this rhythm to it, right? There's this status quo, and it takes kind of one thing changing for another thing to change here. When you're a football player normally, it's hard to make big life plans, right? You don't know if you're going to have to pick up and move cities at some random point. You don't know, you're traveling a lot anyways, like it's a stressful situation. But when COVID hits, everything gets a lot slower. You remember, things start being from home, like the draft is a Zoom draft, right? The meetings all start happening remotely, and it means you get to spend a lot more time at home in Knoxville with your girlfriend. And that extra time means, hey, pretty good time to pop the question. And they'll get married during the 2021 season. The engagement story is very funny. He was going to do it like in front of her family. It was like a dinner at her mom's house or something. And she was running late, so she didn't like bother to get dressed up. Like, whatever, it's just dinner at mom's. It's not a big deal. And he's like, are you sure you don't want to get dressed up? And she's like, no, I'm fine. We're running late. I'd rather be on time. Okay. And like that exchange, she later, like, it clicks in her head, like, oh, because that's not something he would like ever think about like, would you or would you not want, like, that's not something you'd ever ask unless there was a reason, right? So then it's suddenly like, oh, wait. Oh, okay, I get what's happening. Like totally spills it. He's not that good of a secret keeper anyways. And they'll get married in the 2021 season. But the through line of all of these cute little anecdotes is that Harrison Smith is somebody that is content with what he has and doesn't do a lot of dreaming about what he doesn't have. That's, I guess, what I get out of those stories. Somebody that likes life the way it is. He likes his gym the way it is. He likes his car the way it is. He likes his team the way it is. And going through that and knowing in hindsight that he is about to, take millions fewer dollars to stay there, it's kind of hard to imagine him not doing that because he likes things the way that they are. There are a couple of other defensive backs that I want to get into their story time entries, their Everyman Series entries. But first, let me talk to you about America's #1 sports book. It is FanDuel. FanDuel is a great place to start a gambling. If you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now, you can make a $20 bet and get up to 10 times that money back in bonus bets, up to $200. So you put in $20, you can get $200 in bonus bets. You can spend those bonus bets on whatever you want, whether it is, some MLB thing. There was just a perfect game. You could have bet on something like that. Yankees, A's. I guess, I don't know what the spread was there, but I'm pretty sure the Yankees covered. You can bet on NFL futures as well, like how many games will the Vikings win. Soon enough, there will be player props, and I'm like 99% sure that the Justin Jefferson one will probably be under 1,400 yards again, which would mean that for that under to cash, he would have to have his worst season yet. So if you don't think that would happen, I mean, I'm going to slam that one. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to use my bonus bets on that. But whatever it is you want to do, just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and place your first bet. And up to $200 worth of bonus bets will come back. But whatever it is, it's tenfold on your first bet. So your first bet is $1, you get $10 back. Your first bet is $20, you get $200 max. That's how it works. That is at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, make every moment more. Thank you so much for those of you who do listen to this show every single day. I appreciate y'all so much. Please leave a YouTube comment, send me a tweet, whatever hashtag everydayers. I appreciate you guys. I want to hear from you. Next up, I want to go through the story of Kalon Barnes. A lot of people will call Kalon Barnes like a track guy. He's a track star, trackster, speedster. I'm not going to do that because Kalon Barnes is a football player first and foremost. And while track is a lot of how he became known, it's not his first passion. His first passion is football. He picked up a football for the first time at 5 years old. He's been playing for that long. And he was a boisterous little kid. His dad, Chris, actually ran track at the same high school in Silsbee, which is a small town in East Texas. So this is a Texas football kid. But his dad ran track at Silsbee High School, and Kalon Barnes would walk through the halls of that high school as a kid. And, his dad would say, "Oh, this is my record. I did this. I set this one." And he said, "Oh, I'm going to beat those someday, Dad." Matter of fact, like confident, right? And ultimately, he did. The numbers are gaudy. 10.22 in the 100-yard dash. That broke his dad's record. And then I think the year after that, he ran a 9.9, but they said the wind helped. So officially it was a 10.04. I mean, that's getting close to Olympic times. And that's, if you Google Kalon Barnes, you're probably going to find more about his track stuff than you will about his football stuff. He's known for being a speedster, but again, it's not the way he wants to be known. There is the talent, which is his running, and then there is the passion, which is football. There is the perfect example of this is there's an Adidas, like this exhibition thing in high school that he will win over like other future NFL players because this is Texas athletics and that's just how things work. There's just like future NFL guys everywhere. But it's this like exhibition thing. He runs really fast at it. And it's sponsored by Adidas. And through it, he will get an offer for an actual sponsored deal with Adidas that is going to result in, like actually a brand thing. And then also an actual job for his dad actually it's a really big opportunity for the family. And so he's talking to his dad about whether or not they should do it. And there's kind of two things that stick out. One, football is the love. We're going to do football. And two, there is this kind of dream of going to the NFL where the money is going to be better. So let's go pursue that, right? Players who make it to the NFL aren't exactly the kind of people that settle for the first thing that comes along. They're dream chasers. Takes kind of a completely insane dream chaser to make it this far in the first place. But maybe the best story about all of this with Kalon Barnes is at Baylor, where he will go. He'll play wide receiver for the first couple of years and he gets switched to defensive back. And there's this moment where he has a track meet and football practice on the same day. It's football practice, and then he's going to have to go right to a track meet. And the Baylor coaches know about this. So they're like, we'll let Kalon Barnes go a little easy on this one. And somewhere along the way, a wire gets crossed and the position coach doesn't get the memo. So they're going full speed. They're going, making him do all the drills, working him out, getting him tired. And he doesn't say a word throughout all of it, right? He's ready to do a regular practice and he goes through it all, smile on his face, same old, same old. And then later they talk about it and it's like, oh no, I must have made him really tired for his track meet. He must have done so bad. No, 10.34 in the 100. Still absolutely a competitive time. But hey, come on. He was running a 10.04 in high school. He's mad about that. He's super frustrated with himself because he couldn't do it. And it's just 100% not his fault. It's football practice tired him out and he went to a track meet gassed and still ran a 10.34. To me, that perfectly encapsulates this. The focus on that day is let's go to football practice. And it's just a ho-hum practice that he didn't have to do anything on, right? Totally could have just taken it easy that practice. Nobody would have batted an eye. But that's not the mentality. The mentality is I'm here for football and I love football. Oh yeah, and by the way, I'll go run track and effortlessly still be really good. It's the talent and the passion kind of at a true crossroads. So of course I would be remiss if I didn't mention the 40 time. When it's time to go to the combine and actually practicing for the 40 and all that stuff, he is, the expectations are sky high, right? He is all speed. And because he is a D-back for only 2 years, his tape ain't that good at Baylor. And he's, very much, he's got to do the 40 time that's good enough to get him an opportunity. How about 100th off of the combine record, which is currently held by John Ross? Best DB ever, 4.23. Insane number. That is absolutely superhuman. Kalon Barnes is a fast dude. He's also learning a new position. And truly, he has at certain points in his career, whether on a small scale like that track meet and that football practice that were on the same day, that doesn't really diverge into something greater. It's kind of just how did you approach that day? But even on a bigger scale, am I going to go be the Adidas track high school kid? Or am I going to focus on football? Wherever it is, he is choosing his passion, which is football, over track, which is the thing you could close your eyes and be effortlessly, possibly Olympics level good at. I respect that so much. There is something so special about the kind of guy that will throw away everything else to do what he wants to do, to chase that dream, that young idealistic thing. I can be in the NFL. And sure enough, he is. He will go out for the draft in 2022. So last year was his first year. He was a 7th round pick by the Panthers. So that 40 time was just enough to get him drafted just on the basis of being fast. And maybe we can turn this guy into something. There's all these jokes about how all the other fast players on the Panthers want to race him and stuff. And that Matt Rule Panthers locker room thing, at least at the start of the 2022 season, was a pretty jovial place where that kind of thing could be fostered. But unfortunately, Kalon Barnes will not make the Carolina Panthers. Ultimately, he'll get cut on cut down day. He'll join the Miami Dolphins practice squad. And then in December is when the Vikings actually take him in as sort of a futures contract thing. And by then they needed some extra depth because I think that was when Caleb Evans was like out for good and Andrew Booth was already like out for good. So they needed some cornerback stuff. So they brought him onto the practice squad. And that is truly how this kind of stuff manifests itself. Somebody gets hurt and that becomes your opportunity, right? Things tend to be a little bit zero sum. But now here he is coming into Vikings training camp, another chance to make the team, possibly the best chance he's going to get to make the team. Outside of being a 7th round pick, usually, you pick a corner in the 7th round, that guy has a decent shot. Didn't work that time. But this time, it's a wide open cornerback room, right? All kinds of guys that are not going to be guaranteed to make the team. So if Kalon Barnes, who is not as new to the position as he was when he was coming out in the draft, got another year, even if it's just scout team experience, another year of experience. He's in year 4 of playing cornerback, still just as fast as ever. If something can click, maybe he can prove that choosing your passion is the right thing to do. And that is what is truly at stake for Kalon Barnes. I ask a lot, why do you do this, right? And for people like Barnes, it is a passion for the game. For people like another undrafted corner in Jalen Williams, it runs a lot deeper. He's next on the Locked On Vikings podcast. I want to take you to Germantown, Tennessee. I'm going to call it like 2009. Year of this is unclear, but we'll call it somewhere around 2009. There's an overly energetic elementary school kid thrown into a youth football program. And how many NFL careers start that way? If you've been listening to this show for a long time, that is a chorus we sing a lot. So kids rambunctious running around and his parents like, oh my God, you need to get your energy out, going to football. There, picking up a ball, playing, having a lot of fun, he makes a very good friend by the name of Teddy. And Teddy wears number 23 and Jalen Williams will wear number 26, which is his birthday. Great number for a kid to pick. And the two become really, really close friends. They'll even get to elementary school a little early so they can play PSP games, which is an absolutely phenomenal way to exactly like carbon date when this is in the world. But he didn't notice that Teddy's hair was falling out because the haircuts that the two of them had, you wouldn't really notice. They had like fades and stuff, so it would be a little harder to notice. Didn't realize that when Teddy stopped showing up to school, that he was never going to show up to school again. That was the first time that he had really experienced the kind of loss that ultimately we will all experience at some point in our life, probably more as we get older. And he doesn't like to talk about it much. He's not a sharer like that, but you can tell it's always in his mind because he will, for the rest of his football playing career up until probably the Vikings, because it's not available, he's going to wear number 23. He's not wearing number 26 anymore. And there is this, if you can really get him to talk about it, this kind of idea that he's doing it for Teddy. That he has this legacy to uphold. This person who was such a friend of his that couldn't grow up to pursue the dream the way he did. So now he's doing it for the both of them. Again, you always ask, what is it that drives you? It's different for everybody. And for this, it is quite a bit deeper. And for Jalen Williams, he definitely has that it factor the whole time he's a kid. He's too fast for his own good to start. There is in middle school, he'll run so fast that when he like plants and tries to cut, it's like a muddy field. He'll sprain his knee. He won't play until freshman year. He plays basketball. He cuts so fast that he can't actually get the ball with him because he's like cutting too far away, too fast for the ball to come up in the dribble. That is the sort of like athleticism that we're working on here. And he always plays cornerback. His family moved around a good bit as a kid though. And eventually he will move to California and played some there as a high schooler, but his coaches in San Francisco don't really see it in him, and he doesn't get really a lot of playing time, which kind of starts to shake his confidence. So to help that out, his D-backs coach up there will get him into track and run every single track event you can run, 200, 400, 500, like everything. And he will win a whole bunch of those events because he's fast. And that sort of gives him his swagger back a little bit, gives him that little extra shake of confidence, which it doesn't take much. a little bit of confidence and a whole fresh start means you get to be a whole new guy. And he will actually move back to Tennessee, back to Memphis, for his 11th and 12th grade years. And a little bit of confidence and a whole bunch of talent, he gets in and he becomes a leader on that team pretty quick. If you were around Jalen Williams around this time, and I'm sure he's still like this today, he's a very jovial guy. He's kind of a class clown. He's joking around. He's the ringleader of this whole group of kids that's like this clown patrol that keeps kind of goofing off. But all their coaches say, like, hey, when it's time to grind, it shuts out. And it's time to grind. And they still have that focus, but this sort of whimsy to it all, where it's still fun. And sometimes players will lose that. I forget who was talking about it. Some player that I want to say was like Jadeveon Clowney, or like somebody that's been in the league for a while, would kind of talk about that and say, for some guys, you do get a little jaded, where it does become a little bit like a job and a little bit less like a game. If that's going to happen to Jalen Williams, it certainly hasn't by this point. It's very much, we get to go play a game, we're having a lot of fun. But underneath that veneer, underneath that jovial exterior, there is still that inner hunger, and that all too real, all too grown up for the age he had to kind of adopt it at. This, I'm doing this for Teddy. Still wearing number 23. He'll play well enough. He'll get a few offers, not as many as his coaches think he should, of course. But the one he will take is from Ole Miss. But unfortunately, the timing of this is a little awkward, in that this is right around when Ole Miss is going through a moment. Hugh Freeze is the coach. They're having a whole thing with their recruiting problem. Boosters, this big scandal. I'm sure you know about it. And right as he's about to attend Ole Miss is the year that Hugh Freeze gets ousted and everything is falling apart and the program falls apart. So he decommits and he will instead go to Indiana University. He's still playing for 2. And ultimately, I mean, he still wears number 23 at Indiana. And there is this sort of extra drive to him to make that extra play, which is a great thing, but you kind of have to learn to control it. And there's this moment in Indiana, he gets an interception. It's like his 4th interception of that year too. And he's trying to return it and he's trying to make a play, trying to get a touchdown because, just getting the pick isn't enough, right? You got to make that extra play. And he ends up forgetting to tuck the ball into his other hand, and he ends up getting the ball stripped. Other team gets the ball back. It's this really stupid moment that he just beats himself up over. And he'll actually get pulled a couple times just because he's trying a little bit too hard to make the play. He has, throughout all of high school, his grandpa's really in his corner, cooking for him, swatting girls away, that kind of thing. Keeping him focused, right? And he is really excited when he's set up to go to Indiana University, to show his grandpa everything about it. Grandpa's going to help him move and everything. But unfortunately, I think it's a few weeks before his grandfather will have a heart attack and pass away. And it's another thing that he kind of takes on his shoulders that, now, again, I always ask, why are you doing this? What gets you up at 5:30 a.m. to do deadlifts? It's, for him, for Jalen Williams, it's Teddy, it's all his high school teammates, it's his grandpa. It's for people who believed in him, the coaches who did, and to a point, the coaches who didn't. And it's to prove the people who believed in him right. That is what Jalen Williams is doing this for. I think it's really easy with these undrafted guys to sort of forget them. And ultimately, their chances at a roster are going to be long. You're looking for a practice squad slot, be on the scout team, try to learn, try to get to a point where you can make this roster a little better. But hey, just like with Kalon Barnes, like, the roster is open, right? The cornerback room is not filled with a whole bunch of entrenched, established dudes. You might be able to usurp one if you have a big camp. For Jalen Williams, there is just that inner hunger that you would never know because he doesn't talk about it. He doesn't, talking to his grief a whole bunch. This comes from this indie star profile where he finally got to open up. and everything kind of gets laid out and pieced together. But he's always that guy trying to make the extra play. And I'm super excited to see if that can really turn into something in camp. And it could also turn into a total abject disaster, which it did sometimes at Indiana, where he's trying too hard to make a crazy play and he ends up, screwing up the little things. And he's really like his own worst critic, really, really hard on himself for all that stuff. And we'll see what all of this work and drive and hunger can really culminate into. Tomorrow will be the last show that I'm doing, in schedule for a little while. I'm going on a trip. I'll have some pre-recorded shows for the week after. There'll be more Everyman series stuff. You honestly won't be able to tell the difference, but hey, if there's major breaking news that you're waiting for me to cover that happens next week, I'm going to have to get to it later. If there's like a big extension or whatever, we'll get to it the following Monday. So I will see you for that. I'll see you for a real show tomorrow. And as always, Skol.